Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, and welcome to today's episode of 219 GreenConnect, where we explore topics about the environment and green living in Northwest Indiana. For past show archives, news, and upcoming events, you can check out our website at 219 GreenConnect or join us on Facebook or Twitter. You can find us there. Our ID is 219 GreenConnect. You can also subscribe to this podcast on iTunes. I'm your host, Kathy Sipple, and today with me as my guest, I have BJ Smith, and she is the founder of an organization called Shorecombers that is located down in Alabama, and we're pretty much at the opposite end of that shoreline. If you follow 65 straight up through America, and I've done that road before, all the way from Indiana down to Alabama, we've got Lake Michigan here at this end. So she's going to tell us a little bit about how she decided to start Shorecombers, what they do, and how it's relevant for people that don't live anywhere near the Gulf of Mexico, how we can keep our trash out of our waterways. So welcome, BJ. We really appreciate having you here today.
Wow, thank you, Kathy. What a great introduction. I look forward to also exploring our connections along the I-65 and along the waterways.
Yeah, I kind of forgot to tell you that. We had just a moment or two to connect before starting the podcast, and I did actually, I've only been to Alabama once, but I did that entire drive, down 65, so I felt that connection as I was doing it. So, yeah, I love Lake Michigan. It's just such a treasure that we have here, and it just breaks my heart when I hear, that it's being threatened by pollutants getting in there. We've had some really tragic things happening lately in the news, and whether it's chemical spills, oil pipelines breaking, or trash, any of it is bad. But you really deal mostly with the trash component. Is that correct?
Yes, that is. I find that it's a real layperson topic, and I was looking for a way to get more people involved in clean water initiatives, and it's kind of hard to teach. I don't have a scientific background. My background's in the arts and languages and business management. So I found that it was a good way to get those of us involved who don't know a lot about endangered species or invasive species or silting up rivers, that stormwater runoff, that it was trash, because we can all see trash. We might not know what an invasive species looks like, but we sure know what a Dunkin' Donut cup looks like. So yeah, and the same methods apply to all of these different areas, as far as tracking endangered species and tracking a Dunkin' Donuts cup. If you learn one skill, you can easily transfer it to the other.
Yeah, well, that's great. One of the things I told you is that I always like to kind of provide some context for, local listeners, and hopefully we can provide resources from outside the area and find out, and people listening from outside of Northwest Indiana also certainly want to be a resource for them. But I'm always striving to kind of connect the green dots. Who are the players that are already in place? And in speaking to you, it sounds like that's actually a key strategy of how you help people is kind of by mapping those stakeholders. Is that right? Can you say a little bit more about the importance of getting a coalition of stakeholders and the planning for ultimate success?
Absolutely. The first thing, if you're taking a class of mine, or if we're developing a program together, then the first thing to do is to find out what stakeholders you already have, which ones you're already working with, and through that map, and it can be an actual GIS map, or you can download a Google map or find one from your local tourist agency. You can plot a number of these stakeholders physically And then other stakeholders are a little more amorphous, so they'll just go into a big list. So the first thing we do is we find out who's already on board, who you're working with, what your team looks like, and from there we can figure out which sorts of stakeholders you might be missing. But absolutely, planning rarely starts from step one. You're usually well into a project, and so we try to honor all of the work that's gone on before within your community, within your organization, and that includes, first of all, starting with who is already doing the work.
Well, that's great, and I'll confess I probably don't know everybody that's doing the work, but what I'd like to suggest is that maybe you kind of use me as a sample case study just to kind of show how you would generally do what you do, and in so doing, anybody that's listening can hopefully plug into some new resources, or if you're a resource that's not mentioned, please email me or comment on the podcast website and let me know that you exist so that we can include you in the show notes and some of the follow-up messaging. Does that sound like a decent idea?
That sounds perfect, yes.
Okay, cool. And just first of all, I am really interested in this, but you can be anybody, right, to be a shorecomber. You have something on your website under Trash Blast Leaders asking what does a shorecomber look like? And it seems like it could be really anybody at all, anybody that can pick up a bag, right, and is concerned about the environment.
Absolutely, yes. So let's hear what you've got.
Yeah, as you listen, just imagine you being one of these people. You're an untapped resource that we haven't even mentioned yet, so we'd love it if you could come forth. Okay, so some of the things that I know about currently are the Adopt a Highway program. I think that happens, pretty much everywhere. I see those signs around my county and probably outside the county too. And it's kind of cool that I actually know a few of those people that are, listed on those signs. One person that I know, or one couple actually that I know that does that, Rob and Sue Klett, they actually were in my master recycler class and composter class that we all took together 3 years ago, hosted by my county, Porter County, Indiana, and that was the first program of its kind, the first master recycling program in all of Indiana. So I was really happy to be in the first class of the first program, and since that time I believe they've had a spring and a fall class each year for 3 years. So we've now got graduates of each of those courses. I think there are about 20, 30 people in each of those that all need to earn volunteer hours. So I'm thinking this would be a great way for them to earn some volunteer hours. And since Porter County started it, I believe Lake County also has a fledgling master recycler program getting off the ground. And I know LaPorte County has also been fairly active. I don't know if they've got a program or if it's in its infancy, but I know that they've got some really awesome recyclers over there. So that would be another one. And then I served as a board member for a coastal program grant. It's the Lake Michigan Coastal Program Grant offered through the Indiana Department of Natural Resources. And I'm thinking that a lot of the environmental people on that board would probably be both interested maybe in co-writing, a grant or a proposal or something like that. It would definitely fall under, their objectives for that, those funds that come up each year. So they're always looking for ways to, keep Lake Michigan more pristine. There's approximately $600,000 of funding available every year. And so they've got information right now on their website, which is in.gov/DNR/Lake-Mich, M-I-C-H. And that's got all kinds of information about the funding cycle. There are both large grants and also some small grants. So those are just some things off the top of my head. I also mentioned to you that I started a time bank last year. So there are all kinds of really great people in the time bank who are interested in a number of things, but because I started the Time Bank and I'm interested in environmental topics, typically a lot of the people attracted to it have also been environmental types. We also have a really active green drinks network here in Northwest Indiana. We're lucky enough to have two groups that meet every single month in Gary, Indiana, and in Michigan City, Indiana. And here in Valparaiso, where I live, there's a group called the, Valparaiso, I'm going to get their name wrong, Lakes Group, that's all concerned about water quality. And they host an environmental program every other month. So I'm just thinking, like, among all of those, we've got to have some pretty good bones to put something like this together. How does that sound?
Oh, absolutely. That sounds fantastic. Yeah. That's an incredible group of stakeholders that you have. Yeah. So from
I forgot about is we actually have a really strong regional planning commission. It's called the Northwest Indiana Regional Planning Commission, and they've got an environmental management group that meets monthly as well. So they would be an important one.
Yeah, that's really an awesome one too, because they have access to things like to mapping software and to different layers of mapping software. You can certainly start a program just with a Google terrain map and a highway map. But it's awesome to have a planning commission involved as well. So from the point of once you've got your stakeholders organized, then you kind of decide what your territory is going to be. And your territory, as your territory will always have these flow dynamics. It will always have water dynamics. I believe when we talked earlier, you mentioned the name of the watershed that you're in. So that's usually a really cool place to start.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good. So
can you tell me a little more about it? Yeah.
About our watershed?
Yeah.
I've been through a class, and this is terrible. It's probably been 6 years or so now since I did this. It was actually a green drinks presentation, but a woman from Save the Dunes, which is a local nonprofit very involved in water quality, hosted this segment, and it was called something like Everybody Lives in a Watershed. And so she actually had a great map and showed us exactly where the lines were. And oh my goodness, I should have had this pulled up and ready to go.
Nope, you don't
remember.
You don't need to know exactly where the lines are. And I have a ton of resources also to help you find information like that. But that's just to give you an idea as to how your territory already exists and how you link people to water's edge and as this woman did to your dune area. So because people can't always, unless you live in a real mountainous area, you might not even be aware that there's a water body nearby. Mobile is a very flat area, and we have a huge river in our community. A lot of it, as you drive over it, might look like a concrete drainage ditch. Other areas you just can't see because unless you're on the edge of the water, you wouldn't know that there's this incredible wetland right on the other side of someone's house. So it helps when you're defining your territory to just do some searches on some aerial maps. You become almost like a bird flying over your territory. And then you can begin to see how perhaps the mall parking lot is a pretty big offender at generating trash and plastics and styrofoams and all manner of toxins that are going into your local water body, which you might not have thought of before.
Yeah, I probably have thought of it, but maybe some people listening to have not. But I am really happy that the Valparaiso, where I live, has secured some grants in the past, possibly from that same coastal grant program that I mentioned, that has a lot of, bioswales and rain gardens that kind of helps not only with the trash, but the water runoff, from these parking lot areas, and a lot of people putting in the porous pavement so that they can do more of the cleaning of the water, with the natural plants. So there's been a lot of good effort there. But if you can see trash, you know that there's still a gap. We've gone to those efforts, but you're right. I do see the Dunkin' Donuts, cups. I do see the plastic bags are a, terrible offender. We are not a state that has a ban on plastic bags by any means, and those are just really, really tough. So anyway, I think you're giving me a really good idea of the start, and obviously it's fairly complex, and I'm not asking you to jam your whole course into one half-hour podcast. But let's talk a little bit about how you teach people to do this in the extended way. First, I want to just give a shout-out for your website. If this is something that you're interested in finding out more about, you can go to www.shorecombers.org. That's shore, just like Lake Shore, and then C-O-M-B like boy, E-R-S.org. And you've got a trash blasting virtual campus and some workshops offered. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. I find that when I go to a week-long or a multi-day long workshop, that I am so excited, and I am so enjoying all the new skills that I'm learning, and working with all the other students in the workshop, and usually on the just little sample projects. And then when I get home, all of that falls apart, and I can't remember how to relate it to what it is that I do to my projects. So that's why we work for 7 weeks, and on your project, because we want to make sure that we might not finish your entire plan in 7 weeks, but I want to make sure that you know how all of the different skill sets can be used on your project, and you can come in with your whole team. It's not just an individual participating in the workshop, but usually there is one person on the team who will do the workshop and take the information back to the rest of the organization. For example, one really cool part is in developing your trash survey, because, as you say, working on grants and enticing sponsors and volunteers, you really need to know what your metrics are. And so we spend almost 2 weeks on just developing trash surveys and developing your team, who will go out and do the early estimates on how much trash there is and where the trash is. It seems like trash is everywhere, but really you're going to find you got some hot spots. And then as people really get their survey skills down pat, you find out which areas you're going to concentrate on, then those skills turn into monitoring skills, so that you can you develop your program on the initial trash estimates and all of the inventory of information that you've collected before you started the program. And then you develop your program, you develop your budgeting, you know about how many volunteers you're going to need, you know which areas you're going to concentrate on. You can begin to develop your budget numbers, and grants. Those are grants will just suck all of that information up when you're developing a grant proposal. And what funders really want to know also is how you're going to know if you've succeeded. And your volunteers want to know this too, because the trash isn't going to stop tomorrow. So volunteers want to know, even though they're going out week after week and cleaning up the same areas, they want to know that they're making a difference. And so these metrics that you develop in your surveying skills, that's what helps them understand that even though they keep finding trash, that they may be finding less trash, and that they may be finding ways to go into other areas upstream to tackle this trash. That so your surveying skills are just are really incredibly important, and that's one of the things that we concentrate on in the Shorecombers class, and that's why it's important for it to last more than just a weekend, is for you to be able to get a chance to go out and make some estimates, and then come back and test them out within the group, and or find out, or just to kind of tweak your surveying skills.
Okay, great. And I know this is, I understand that about learning something over a long time. I think that's a really good strategy, because then you can take time to answer some questions, develop questions, do a little homework in between the modules, and I think that's really great. So I know that all of your courses are offered through Udemy as well, and people can find out about that on your website. And you also have a place on your website where people can apply for a scholarship, which I think is very generous of you. I know you do this kind of as a labor of love. You're technically retired, but this is a project that you have embraced in your retirement. So typically you said you offer those workshops twice a year, and the next one will be held when?
The next one will be held in most likely the end of September, so that it kind of bookends around the end of our cleanup season, like the coastal cleanup, Ocean Conservancy's International Coastal Cleanup, and I'd like to have it end before we get into the holidays, so before Thanksgiving starts, the U.S. Thanksgiving starts. But we can also work together when you if you're developing a program. There are other ways we can work together. For one, I have a program, I call it It's in the Bag program, because the icon of all cleanups is the bag, and I just really like that expression. A clean ocean is in the bag. I use the ocean, realizing that every drop of rain that falls on the planet will eventually end up in the ocean, kind of thing. So when I speak of the ocean, you can think of any water body that's nearby you, even if it's the little, as you say, the swale or the rain garden or the stormwater retention pond. All of that is part of us creating a clean enough environment so that once water eventually does make it to the ocean, that it's the best water we can possibly contribute.
Great. So, well, I hope people will check this out, and I keep thinking of more and more people that I'm hoping might want to get involved. But let's hear some of your success stories. I know you've had a few people who have been fortunate to secure grant funding to get some things done. Can you tell us about a few of those?
Oh, yeah. Two of my first students here on the Gulf Coast, they went through the program. One of them actually went through the program twice. She sent one of her assistants through the program, and as they learned how to develop their projects and how to keep their metrics and do their surveys, and really how to present themselves at conferences and with their stakeholders, we had a series of grants come up on the Gulf Coast, and they were brand new. And so the organizations who were usually there ready to pick up the cash, they weren't prepared for these two grants. And with usually you only have like a month or so worth of notice to be able to even apply for a grant. So these two brand new programs went in and scooped up $10,000 each.
Well, that's great.
And I think even going through the program assured them that they were quality, they were able to, that they fit the guidelines, because many times a local cleanup organization, like I say, they're not usually science-based or even any kind of government-based, and so they don't understand that they may not feel secure enough in what they know to be able to apply for grant funding. But once you go through the training, whether you take it as a 7 weeks or whether we work in individually, you'll know that you're doing everything that any other organization has been that any other organization is doing, whether they're Ocean Conservancy or NOAA, your DMR, local DMR. You'll really understand how you fit in with all of these organizations, and you'll trust your skill set, and you'll be well assured that what you're doing is going to make a difference. Not only that it's going to make a difference, but you'll know exactly where your impacts are and how many people you're going to need to run your program, and what the funding is going to cost. And I really think that people need to take their skill set seriously and honor the fact that they should probably earn a little bit of money as well in running the program.
Well, it definitely helps to make it sustainable so that it's not just a hobby. It can be something that people can afford to make a priority and be part of their job. And quite honestly, I'd be interested in that. I think, just being out in nature, getting exercise, doing this with friends, I think it would be a great, fundraising opportunity for the Time Bank. We cover quite a wide area, and it's something we could do to start small and grow, as we grow. So I'd be very, very interested in that. If anybody's hearing this and likes that idea, I would love it if you could hit me up with an email. Email me at Kathy@cothrive.org. That's KATHY @COTHRIVE.org, or Kathy at 219GreenConnect.com as well. Those are both me. Those will both find me. One's the Time Bank, one's this podcast. So I think BJ has shared a lot of really great ideas. And again, if you'd like to work with her directly and find out ways to do this, or if you want to contact me and figure out how we can do this as a team approach, I think I can, get you jump-started a little bit. So again, her website is shorecombers.org. You can find out all about the programs we've been talking about. And I just want to thank her so much. I think this is a really beautiful thing that you're doing in retirement. You've got, a lot of love for nature and the environment, just as I do, and I really appreciate you.
Wow, thanks so much, Kathy. And obviously, I have such respect for you with taking your skill sets to the master level, and also for taking the time to host this podcast. That's really a labor of love too. So thanks so much for having me on, and I know we're going to work together and create some beautiful clean water together.
Yeah, there are good things happening. I think if we can just, highlight those, celebrate those, and get them down on recordings, it makes it a lot easier for people to discover it and find their way. Just a couple other resources that I did think. I know we've less than a minute left, but I'm just going to do a quick download of these ideas. Earth Charter Indiana, headquartered down in Indianapolis, might be a start. The Indiana Recycling Coalition also might want to look into this. Lisa Harris Consulting, I know she's done a lot of work with the Great Lakes and water quality. I'm thinking she might want to take a look at this as a project that she'd like to spearhead. And that's probably all we have time for at this point. But thank you so much. You've been listening to another episode of 219 Green Connect, and we really appreciate you for taking the time to be here with us today.